Hello, everybody. We are recording Meet the Expert interviews from Indianapolis UserCon. And today I have the great but unimaginable pressure of interviewing Tim Davis.
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
It's going very, very well. Most people don't notice, but when I was interviewing for VMware, Tim took an hour of his time to actually go with me over all the compensation package and everything I should have understood before accepting the offer. And we had only met through Slack, and mostly to pile on him because everybody was making fun of him back in the early vExpert Slack days. Yeah. So I've always had just the best feelings towards Tim for helping me out. And today we get to meet him and record him for vBrownBag. So
glad to be here.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Tim, go ahead and tell us what you do.
So I am a cloud advocate for VMware. This is a really new space. We work up through Milan Desai, who's in charge of the VMware Cloud Services portfolio. And our job is to really get out there and show the customers that VMware is not just the legacy hypervisor, vSphere company anymore. Pat's been on stage for several years now talking and basically telling customers we're a multi-cloud company, and that's exactly what we are. If there are customers out there that have a little bit of Azure or AWS or Google, or they have 100% AWS, Azure, or Google, we have solutions to help customers be successful with that.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And I remember you came in as an NSX specialist, basically. But I want to go way back to the beginning, because one of the things I love to do in the Meet the Expert series is for people to realize that everybody starts somewhere, right? Yep. So please go ahead and tell me about your work experience. How you got into IT? Absolutely.
So I've been tearing computers apart for as long as I can possibly remember. Even when I was a kid, before getting into actual PCs and stuff like that, I would take screwdrivers to my electronic toys and see if I could put them back together working. Sometimes it did, sometimes it did not. But eventually I realized that, hey, I can do this. Took a bunch of tech classes in high school and stuff like that. And my first job ever was actually my senior year of high school. I was hired by my district. And I would, work there, during my class period during the day, and then after school, I would drive over to one of the elementary schools, and I was the on-site tech. I did absolutely everything at that location. Went from there, did a little bit of, consulting for a little while, just, my computer's broken and stuff like that. And the biggest thing...
Going to see your aunt's computer, or actually working for a company? I worked
for a guy that did it, and I mean, it is not what most people think of when they think of consultancies. This was two guys driving around trying to find any job they could. Mm-hmm. Eventually that wasn't panning out, because, you can charge $95 an hour and it's all well and good, but if you only have 4 hours of work a week, it's not great. Mm-hmm. So I got hired with a company.
You got into sales real quick.
No, I actually did. It took me a good while. I ended up going and I worked telephone tech support. That was my first real corporate job, was telephone tech support. Did that for a while, went over and
tech support for what?
So I actually did support for a power company called Ameren out of Missouri and Illinois, but I worked for the third-party company that did their thing. That was fascinating. I learned a lot doing that. Polished up the customer service, soft skills, stuff like that. But then ended up working my way through, worked in a data center for a good while for a company that's now IBM SoftLayer. Okay. And then went through and eventually found my way to Dell. The whole time I had always been interested in virtualization. The first time I ever turned on VMware Server 2.0, I was hooked. I was like, this is awesome. I've got, a Linux laptop and I'm running a Windows machine on it. It was the coolest thing I had ever seen. And I always wanted to do VMware for VMware. Made it over to Dell. I was a VMware admin and a VMware architect, and then eventually made my way over to VMware, where I was an NSX SE for the past 3 years. I never thought I was going to be in the NSBU because I was never a networking guy, but I've always known I can figure stuff out. Yeah. And that's kind of how I got here.
It does seem like you never had anybody tell you no, or any fear of that you couldn't progress.
No.
Now, could you tell me some attitudes that helped you through all these stages that you talked?
Yeah, absolutely. Fake it until you make it. Always. Always. Now, of course, don't lie. Mm-hmm. So you can be forthcoming with somebody when you're interviewing that you don't know something, but you know how to find the answer to it. Mm-hmm. That's important. Now, when I got the job, did I tell them, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem? Yeah, you bet I totally did. And I Googled it and I figured it out.
Like crazy.
Yeah, and then I worked on it and I got it to work. That's a big one. And my biggest philosophy in my career is to be the dumbest guy in the room. Like I have to be. And that's just being in a room full of people who are smarter than you make you smarter.
Yeah.
And then eventually you realize, oh, okay, so
I get what
I'm
they're
about
saying.
as smart as these guys now. I need a new room, and then I'll go and I'll do something else.
So tell me about your breakout into the V community and how you found the V community.
It actually started right here at a VMUG. Now, not this one. It started at the DFW VMUG. I had gone because I thought they were cool. It was kind of like a mini VM world and stuff like that. It was great. And during one of the lunch breaks, Brad Christian, who was a DFW VMUG member at the time, now he's a vSAN manager for NSX, or for VMware. Was an NSX guy, but either way, he was just sitting up there, kind of, you know, grabbing the mic, screwing around, and he was like, all right, well, get on Twitter. This is good advice. Get on Twitter. And I had a Twitter account at the time. I never used it. So I went through, I reset it, I deleted everything, and I kind of started from scratch. And
please tell us more about that, because that's a great story.
That is one of the greatest pieces of career advice for somebody in at least our industry that I can give is get on Twitter. And it sounds counterproductive because you'd think tweeting at work would be bad for you, but really following everybody in the community, doing all this, I would not have my job at VMware today if it wasn't for the V community and getting onto Twitter and stuff like that. Now, the way that it helped me the first time, like really helped me, I was having a vSAN problem way back when vSAN was new-ish. Trying to deploy it to some robo sites before vSAN Robo was a thing. Well, we had an issue. We couldn't get, all the configs seemed right. Everything was good. Couldn't get it to work. I went out and just literally blogged out the issues I was having. I sanitized our customer data out of it. Everything was fine, and put it out there. And it made its way around a little bit. And about 4 or 5 hours later, I kind of get a ping from the guy who literally wrote the book on vSAN, Duncan Epping, who's like, hey, have you tried this, this, and this? No, went and tried this, this, and this, and it worked.
Yeah.
It ended up being...
You were a reliever at that point?
It ended up being IGMP snooping on the switches at the time, so you needed layer 2 multicast on that wasn't enabled. But literally having a problem for a newer-ish product from VMware, and then getting the guy that wrote the book on it to give you the answer within less than a day, I would have spun my wheels with support forever. No, you can't. You can't pay for that kind
I always
of thing.
tell people, if you have problems doing PowerShell scripts, send it to Kyle Ruddy. Kyle Ruddy answers every question on PowerShell scripts if you ask nicely and just send him the link. You cannot pay for that. You cannot tell VMware, I want to pay you to have Kyle help me out, but people will do it in the V community.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's great. Everybody should get on there. Obviously, if you're watching these videos and stuff like that, you're semi-familiar, but just get out there. I mean, if you're not sure how to start, just start following everybody who has hashtag vExpert. Follow everybody who has hashtag vCDX. That's where you're going to start seeing a lot of good content and things like that. You'll start retweeting people's stuff. It eventually find the conversation that you either have 2 cents into or that you kind of want to interject, and literally just put yourself in there. Just start talking as if you know them.
It's like creating your own virtual room of people that are smarter than you.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's just, I started talking to people and doing that, and now, I mean, I meet people even to this day where I swear I've known them for 5 years, but I realize that we've never actually met in the same room before, and it's really the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Well, it's a great feeling, right? When any town you go into, you probably know someone, and you can get someone to have dinner with, and etc. All right, so let's talk about more interesting things. Let's say regarding, what do I want to talk about? We could talk about the vExpert Slack and how that made you notorious.
I like to use GIFs a lot, and the Slack was not used to the amount of GIF usage that I had. At the time, there was only about 300 to 50 to 400 people or something in that. I was on it constantly.
And you were one of the administrators, I remember, when there wasn't a formal process to get in.
Right, and I actually got made an administrator because the 2 guys that were running it were on the opposite time zone. Yeah. So when everybody in America was trying to get things done, they were asleep. Yeah. And they ended up reaching out, and I was like, hey, if you guys need help, I'll help you. And they're like, well, you were the one we were thinking of, because I was always there. So I got brought on there and worked with that. Eventually we passed that over to Corey, who runs the vExpert program.
It became an asset.
Yeah, and then of course Martijn comes through and he's like, oh, hey, there's an API for this. So he automates it, and now there's a slick little button inside the, the vExpert page, which is really cool. So it was cool to be a part of that. And I'm, to this day, still one of the main moderators of the Reddit page for VMware as well.
That's right.
I can't get the answer to that.
Thank you. That's not helpful.
But Reddit is known to be like where everybody like blames VMware. Like they just go in and unload. Like it's not a helpful environment.
It is helpful. There's a lot of people that like to go in and hassle VMware. That's actually getting curbed a lot because there's a ton of really good people that work in the industry and a lot of them that work for VMware. We have so many product managers, technical marketing managers and stuff like that that are active in that community that when they see a problem for their product line, they're immediately going in and answering it. Asking if they have an SR number that they can.
A lot of the time, it's just not understanding how the product's meant to work. Right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. All right. Tell me what you're passionate about.
Barbecue.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that was going to be the first answer.
Yeah, a lot of people say tech and all that, and man, tech pays the bills for me. It's when I'm done with work for the day, I'm done with work. I like music. I've been playing guitar for most of my life and all that, drums and everything. I dig that. But my fun hobby that I love is barbecue. I like to cook.
There's a particular hashtag that you like to use?
Yes, so I like the hashtag #TweetYourMeat. Everybody tells me that it's a risky click, and I know it sounds like it's a risky click, and that's one of the reasons why I use it so much. But if you actually click that link and look through it, most of it's me and all of us and people who have taken over that hashtag. But other than that, it's literally just people tweeting barbecue meat and stuff like that, that they eat. Like when I first started using it, most of it was from this meal prepper group talking about their, all the meat that they were making for the week and stuff like that. But I love that hashtag. It's hilarious.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, you have actually been on vBrownBag before.
Yeah. I got started. My first vBrownBag was actually, I believe, my NSX series. I did a 3-part series, 3 weeks consecutive, and I basically took this NSX class that we had done with our customers called the Micro Ninja. And essentially that was just kind of a truncated version of the 2-week NSX Ninja program that the business unit had. So I broke that down into pieces and delivered that. After that, I've done the vBrownBag stage, which is now the VMTN stage, and all that at VMworld. And I've done 1 or 2 other random brown bags around as well.
Awesome. I'll link to them for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, tell us something that we don't know about you, and we'll close out with that.
Oh, Lord. I have no idea. That's a problem because I pretty much post everything. Go to my Twitter. I'm sure there's something that I posted and I forgot. Other than that, I'm pretty straightforward.
It used to be ALDTD.
Yeah, and now it's at VTimD.
Okay. Why was that?
Well, when I first got on, so ALDTD was kind of a truncation of a later day TD. So I was in a band in high school called The Later Day, and we all had our AOL screen names of A Later Day and then our initials. And I had that. I wanted VTimD for a while once I reformatted my Twitter. But there was this guy named Paul, and he owned the Twitter account, but he hadn't used it in like 5 years. And I just kept looking every 6, 12 months or what have you. And at some point in time, somebody mentioned changing your handle without having to start over. And I just happened to look and it was there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, one last thing you want to tell every viewer out there, whether it's a bit of advice or what you're working on or what you're interested in, how they can help you, how you can help them?
Yeah, get on Twitter to help yourself. Reach out to me if you have any questions. The biggest thing that I'm trying to do right now is to try to get all the VMware community and stuff like that to realize that if you're going through and your boss is telling you have to use more AWS, more Azure, more Google, or what have you, VMware is still your guy for that. We've got tons of stuff to help our customers be successful, no matter what cloud they pick.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Ariel.